Let's see what happens. Life is fun this way.
Yeah.
All right. Start. Hey, welcome to 42. Two Souls, One Journey. A raw and unedited look into our lives as humans, based on the 21 grams experiment by Dr. Duncan MacDougall, who concluded that the human soul weighs 21 grams. 21, 21. Get it? 42. On this podcast, we are exploring that no matter what our lives look like on paper, we journeyed similarly. In this episode, we are speaking with the iconic Winnipegger. Oh my God, the Winnipeg iconic community builder, who you'll recognize from a few episodes ago. They are the executive director at Sunshine House. They are creative, magical, and all things community. Welcome, Levi. How are you?
I'm fine. I don't like the lighting and I don't like my camera angle, but I'm here, so we're doing it.
It's the fun part about like the raw and unedited nature, right? Like, I always think this is like being on stage where you've done all your work, you've done your research, you've read the script, and then you get on stage and you're just like, okay, well, we're just gonna have to figure out what we're gonna have to figure out.
This
And
is just what it is.
yeah, and as a drag queen, you like this is second nature almost, where you're like, great, I'm gonna have to work with the stage, this lighting,
I
and
usually
go.
have like shields of makeup and jewelry, so that always helps. You feel a lot less vulnerable under all of those masks.
I mean, the clown makeup is my favorite thing because
Honestly,
yeah, because no matter what, people just think you're fabulous, and you're like, I mean, I know I personally have said some really mean things to people because I knew I could get away with it.
I know. I know. I still do that in
But
daily life. So,
like without it, okay.
yeah. I'm kind of mean. I'm kind of an asshole.
I mean, I think you are, but anybody and everybody I've talked to about Sunshine House and Levi, no one's ever said that. They are like in awe of you and what you do. So, I mean, how do
Okay,
we
maybe
test
I'm a
this
little bit
theory out?
abrasive then.
Okay. There's nothing wrong in being honest and abrasive. It doesn't make
Oh,
you mean.
no, it's just how I actually. That's just how I've survived.
And but I think a lot of queer people can understand that. Like, you need that shield is needed in order to survive no matter where you are. You probably have this thing called the bitch face, where like the girls have this, not just the girls, people have bitch face, and for me, it's sort of like this. It's like your shield. You're like, you want this to fall down, you better like it takes work, and I admire those people because I'm usually like, hey, pig, I'm like a puppy. I just want to be your friend, and I have a sister who's completely bitch face, and people are always like, that's your sister, and I'm like, yeah. They're like, but I'm like, I know you have to break through the wall, and only like a handful of people break through the wall, which is great, which is a great test for when you have partners that need to be vetted.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk. So one of the things that we didn't get to last time was Sunshine House. I feel like it's such a staple in Winnipeg. Like before I even got here, people were talking about Sunshine House. Um, let's give the kids a little history on Sunshine House. How long has Sunshine House been around for? And who are the elders who started this and why?
Okay, so my even though I am a history, like one of my trainings is history, I'm not very good at names, and I'm not very good at like I was like one of those social historians who like follow flows and look for patterns, and you don't need to know all the details. So I'm my there's gonna be this is gonna be loaded with historical inaccuracies, but that's just kind of
Oh my
that's
god, we
fine.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I throw shit out
that's
all
fine.
the time. Yeah, bring
Yeah.
it.
Um, so as far as I understand it, the Sunshine House in its current incarnation really became a thing in about 2000, in the mid 2000s.
Okay.
It operated under the name Kali Shiva Aid Society.
Oh,
And that was started in 19, that was actually the people who started it. So like Margaret Ormond, John Schellenberg, who was a part of it. There was like Pat, Pat Stewart, and like a whole bunch of other folks that I don't know, who were very, 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 very instrumental in like doing that kind of work. And so what they did is it was they were like part of the first groups of folks who were doing harm reduction and outreach. Oh, I think you might be frozen. Hello.
hi. I can see you fine. Am I
Okay.
freezing on your end? Okay.
Yeah. My computer's really old, so it and I didn't bring the good laptop for work, so that's why. So it might freeze actually. So that might be our
Okay.
introduction, where I'll have to switch over to my phone real quickly. But I have that right here.
Yeah. Let's. This is the fun part. Remember? Yeah.
Yeah,
Fun.
technology. Anyways, so they were doing like the harm reduction piece around the HIV/AIDS epidemic because there were so many men, young gay men, who were coming back or like arriving in Winnipeg, and when it just started community spread in Winnipeg, nobody was dealing with it. Like no healthcare professionals were dealing with it in a humane way. Nobody was really talking about it. There was nothing really happening in that field. So they that was their work. They worked very closely with different health organizations and just really provided care for people who were experiencing HIV or AIDS. Like they did that kind of work, and so they did that all of that work through the 90s, and so as an organization we became incorporated in 1991. So we've been like, and then we became a registered charity a few years later. So we've been around as an organization for a long time, and all of those folks who were a part of Sunshine House when it started, they still kind of gravitate back towards it.
Nice.
In the late 2000s, when Kali Shiva lost most of its funding and it got funneled into other organizations within the city, um, for a lot of reasons. That's a whole episode, and I don't know all the details, so I don't want to get into that because it could be slanderous.
Right.
Um,
And we would want
but
that.
no. So, anyways, and then so when it kind of stopped existing, in that form, Sunshine House really took on its role. And so the Sunshine House got its name from one of the folks who used to frequent the drop-ins and the different programs part of Kali Shiva, named Dion Sunshine. And she was an Indigenous person from Long Plains First Nation. I believe she's from Long Plains. And she wrote a really, when she was passing off into the spirit world, she wrote a really nice story that we have posted on our wall. And that was the name that stuck, was Sunshine House. And so it's a really great name, and it has like an incredible story. Um, and so then, as the organization kind of existed, but it didn't really exist in. There was, like lots of small organizations, you experience lots of really big ebbs and big flows and peaks and valleys. So in the late 2000s, in the early 2010s, it was just, the organization was really just scraping by, and there was very minimal programs that were happening. It definitely, from what I understand, didn't look like what it does today. But they had purchased this building because they always worked in the West End or in West Broadway. So if you're like, so the western part of downtown Winnipeg, of the core. But they purchased this building in the West Centennial part, so just north of the Health Sciences Center, in between the Salter and Arlington bridges on Logan and Sherbrooke. And they purchased that in 2007. And so the building was theirs, and so it always existed. Nice. So they continue to run community brunch programs. So that's kind of been our longest standing program that we have going. And that was always just one thing that we had, and then different things would happen because Margaret Ormond, who is like the mother of Sunshine House, she maintained relationships with a lot of, like, you build all these connections when you're doing community work, and so she was able to come up, and she's got a real knack and a real talent for listening to what people are saying and identifying what kind of gaps might exist there. Ooh. And then kind of figuring out ways to communicate these gaps and challenges, or be really creative in addressing them. And so she did a lot of work with different, because of her ability to do that, and her vast knowledge and experience in working in a variety of different communities, she was always called upon to do different types of projects. And so Sunshine House really became, with the community brunch program in the early to mid 2000s, really became like a project-based organization. So really doing a lot of participating in research projects that made sense with the people that we had relationships with, and also just kind of bringing in community members to different tables to ensure that their voices are heard in a variety of different ways. And so that's kind of what we did. And so there's really been, so outside of brunch, we really have two other main programs that things kind of center around. And so that's our afternoon drop-in program, which runs, typically would only run Monday and Wednesdays from 2 to 4, but right now, because of COVID and because of we were able to tap into some extra funding, we're open from 1 to 5 Monday and Wednesdays, and then we're also open on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And then the folks that frequent that drop-in are often, before I started working full-time at Sunshine House, I often had to, I worked in different shelters, and the community and different community members recognized that Sunshine House was the space that was primarily utilized by solvent users at that time, and still does. So most of the folks who frequent our afternoon drop-in are part of this original this project that was done in the mid 2000s, 2013, 2014, the Solvent User Recreation Project. And again, this was one of Margaret's abilities. She had a relationship with a bunch of folks who have used solvents for a very, very long time. And there's a lot of stigma, and there's not a lot of knowledge about the effects and the impacts and the varying abilities that solvent users have from prolonged solvent use. So they did this really great program where they had 8 different modules, and solvent users just participated in them. So there was things like photography. So they produced some really great photography. There was art. They built the Sunshine House drum that still exists and that we care for. They did like woodworking, and then they did the band. And so JD and the Sunshine Band, which was born out of that, was also one of those kind of offshoots of that initial project. So, and then the staple to that was the afternoon drop-in program, because you had to have people kind of gather and converge, but you had to do it in a very organic, unsanitary, familiar way for folks, so that ideas will flow, right, and so that people will be open and will be relaxed. And so the drop-in was key to that, and putting people in the drop-in that people were comfortable with is also very key. And so that's how the afternoon, and that still continues to exist. We still have a relationship with so many of the folks who are still with us and are still living, that still frequent, and we see them 4 to 5 times a week right now. Nice. So that's been really, really great that they were able to stick around even through the transition from like Margaret, the era of Margaret, to me. And then I became involved in the Sunshine House. This is the most long-winded answer, and I'm really sorry. But you asked for the history, and so this is what you get.
So many great tidbits in there. I can't wait to follow up with. So keep going, keep going.
So I got involved with the Sunshine House because I was actually, I was living in my community for a while when my grandpa got sick, and then when my grandpa eventually passed away, I stayed in the community for an additional year, and then that's when I was really, really sorting out my gender identity, and I was really sorting out kind of drag. And I knew at that point, I was like, well, I'm gonna go to my other home, so Brandon. So I left Couchiching, and I went to Brandon, where most of my siblings live, and all of my parents. And I went to Brandon a few months after he had passed, almost a year maybe. And I was just kind of living there. And one person that I had met through a mutual friend at Minneapolis Pride. So Mike, I was in Minneapolis Pride. I just posted on Facebook, and then my friend Mike Tuthill messaged me and was like, hey, we're in Minneapolis too. So then I met this wonderful couple named Owen and Lucas. And so anyway, so like it was a great time, that Pride. We had a lot of fun. And then a few months later, Lucas just kind of messaged me and was like, hey, there's this really interesting research project that's going to be happening out of this place called Sunshine House. Do you want to be a part of it? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? Like, and then he's like, there's the person who's leading it is Margaret, and she's kind of weird, and if she likes you, she'll keep you, and if she doesn't like you, she'll just that'll be it. And I'm like, well, whatever. I have nothing else going on. I was debating like where I was gonna go, right? Because I didn't want to stay in Brandon for too long, but I also like I wanted to go somewhere where I could do a thing. So I was contemplating Vancouver, or I was contemplating Winnipeg, or I was contemplating going further south, and so those are kind of my options. So I met Margaret like on a February afternoon. I drove in from Brandon to Winnipeg, and we met at this weird bar on Corridon, and we had like coffee, and then she called me back a few days later. She's like, yeah, come be part of this team if you want. And so then Mike, the person from the Minneapolis story, said, yeah, you can stay with us and blah, blah, blah. So this is just like, you know, that Manitoba hospitality. If they like you, we're going to do what we want, what we can to keep you sort of thing. So I went, so I did this project. And so it was a mapping project, and it was in conjunction with the University of the Global Health Center at the University of Manitoba and the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. And they wanted to map spaces in Winnipeg where people where men were having sex with men, and where people were buying and selling sex in public spaces, and where people were buying and selling drugs in public spaces. So we had to go around, and we went to like every single neighborhood, and there was a team of 7 of us in the beginning. And we went to every single neighborhood in Winnipeg, and we would just like walk around, and we would talk to people in the neighborhood and be like, hey, Louise, watering your plants on Tuesday morning. Do you know where any of these things are happening? and sometimes people are like, no, that doesn't happen in this neighborhood. And sometimes, and we know that's not true, but because it's also Canada, and so Canada has a real private. We do a lot of things in private, so we don't have that kind of public culture of engaging in these things in a kind of in a way where everyone kind of knows, in that unspoken way, you know.
Oh, I hate that.
So anyways, yeah, super waspy.
Yeah.
And so then we would go around and we would verify that. And then through that whole process, so that was that project was about 6 months. And through that whole process, we realized that there was a lot of queer people who didn't have a place that was outside of a bar and that was outside of a clinic, and people who were adults, right? And this is really key because there's lots and lots of youth programming, but people who are adults who have been kind of navigating a whole bunch of different traumatic systems and queer, because as a result of being queer, or just compounded by the fact that they're queer and often racialized and often engage in those types of activities. We realized that there was just not a space. And so Margaret did what she did, and she called Craig Ross and Kim Bailey over at the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, and they gave her $5,000, and they said, here, do this little program that you want to do another drop-in program and see what happens. And so then that's when we started the Like That at Sunshine House program. And she kept myself on, and then we brought on a couple of other folks as volunteers or staff. And that program, we started it on December 21st of 2014, and there was 2 people who showed up, and it was fine. And we just kind of sat and we got to know Ricky and Randy, and it was just a great time. And then by the end of January, we started to have more, like we just persisted, and more people kind of started paying attention, and people started talking about it. And we were doing it once every 2 weeks. And then after that 6-month period, we realized that let's do it like once every week. And then it became twice a week. And then that's kind of where we plateaued, because there was just not enough resources to keep it going more than that. And it was always an evening drop-in. So we did it from 6 to 8. And we wanted to make sure that it didn't, like 6 to 8 or 6 to 9. And we wanted to make sure that it didn't interfere with the afternoon drop-in programs in any way. Because that community also needed that space. So we had to like be really cognizant of how to merge those varying communities into kind of one space. And then that's kind of how I became involved. And then from then once that started, people were like, "This is a really unique space. We've never seen any like we heard things like we've never seen anything like that," and blah blah blah. And it's and I'm like, "That's great. Don't tell me this." Like all I do is I open the doors and I just let like I just and people just come in and they bring their lives and they're like willing to share what's going on in their life and they're willing to do things about it. And so and all our our goal from the start was like this is we're going to operate this program in a very nondescript, non-prescriptive, uh, not normal social kind of
Perfect.
program. It's just going to be a thing. If we're going to model it off of an auntie's house. So many of us growing up, we had lots of, some of us had lots of aunties, or you had folks who took on that kind of auntie role in your life where you could, it was just a space where you could be and you could just do, and there was often food and it was safe and there wasn't a lot of rules, but you just kind of had to respect everything. And there was often peers and there was sometimes going to be fights and there was sometimes going to be challenges, but it was always going to be like that's the model that we'll follow. And that's what we did. And so um like yeah, we had this one academic who came in from Toronto. I can't remember what the name was now, and they were like, "This is revolutionary." I'm like, "It shouldn't be. This should not be revolutionary in any way. This should actually be the standard." Um, but but again, we become so enshrined in like Western models of practice
Right.
about what community care is supposed to look like that we spend a lot of time not actually listening to what the communities are saying
Right.
and but also not actually listening to everything that communities are saying
Right.
because one of the things and I'll talk about that after. I'm going to stay on the history part.
Right.
And so then that's kind of how I became involved. And then a couple of years ago, Margaret had to depart from Sunshine House for a variety of different personal reasons.
Okay.
And three of us were kind of managing it because I was working at the time, I was working at the University of Winnipeg. Um, and so three of us kind of managed it until until we were certain what was going to happen. And then she resigned from her position in March of 2019. Uh, so then I put my name in as I said, well, I can do because none of the other two people who were doing it at the time were like, we don't want to take it on full time. And so I said, well, my contract runs out on April 1st, actually, of this year. So this is pretty serendipitous. So I'll do it until we come to a thing. Until you want to hire someone formally. So I did that until August, and then I was formally hired in August of that year. Again, it's a small organization, so like I potentially could not have a job on April 1st, sort of thing. Like we're always that kind of dependent
Right.
and reliant on a variety of different streams of funding that are not always super stable. But but I've been doing this now for I guess almost 2 years, and
Wow.
so that's been my role in it. And yeah,
I mean, you're so rooted in the history. Like so interesting for me is that like I always trust that the universe has a plan for me that I don't need to do. I just have to follow. I have to listen and follow. And it almost seems like you just listen. Like, I feel like you're like, I don't have this. Let me try this. Like you were so open to just exploring a door. And I love that Margaret's thing was like, if she likes, she'll keep you. If she doesn't, she like. That's actually the truth across the board. I don't care who you're interviewing, what your skills are. This Western philosophy of meritocracy. No, people will people. My design teacher said that if they like you, they will hire you. And she would always be like, I love hanging out with you, so she always recommended me to places that she had openings at. She's like, yeah, I'm happy to hang out with this guy and have a coffee with him, so I would work with them. And I was like, I don't know what my skills are. Like, I was like I had imposter system at that point where I was like, great, I can be your friend, but am I qualified to be here? And then she was like, yeah, of course you. Like, it's one of those things that people, I think Manjeet Minaj said this from the Dragon's Den. People don't hire you from what you are; they hire you from what they think you can be. Like when
mm-hmm.
they're doing these things, and it sounds like, you know, Margaret definitely had a sense of that. I listened to what you said. I know what can come out of this. I see you. I know what you can be and what you can do, and it's in the potential that that happens. And like from any conversation I've had with anybody in Winnipeg so far, you are that potential, and you've 1,000,000% reached it, and continue to go with it. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here, because it will
Me too.
continue.
Like I honestly, I have no idea. And
Um,
that's also the thing, because we don't operate in a very again, we don't operate in a very stable kind of way. So learning how to um, go into the waves and then ride the good ones, and just learning, just kind of not learning. You never learn. You never know fully.
right.
There's always full. It's always full of surprises. But you just kind of, you just have to be open to being comfortable in the ambiguity and in the uncertainty.
Yeah, honey, you're riding the wave. I feel like whatever the wave is like, wherever you are with it, you're in it, and that's just life.
I'm
One of
not
the things.
doing it the best though, like,
I mean, who
but
is
I'm
like,
doing it.
yeah, but who like what's the you're doing the best that you can in the moment. I think that's all
Yeah.
you can do as a human being, right? Like in the moment, you're like, I see my skills, here I am, and I have to trust that. Like if it's not happening, you will like something will kick you out of it. When you're done with it, you'll be kicked out of it. Like you will leave it, whatever it looks like. So yeah, I mean, like I will cheerleader you. I feel like there's you may feel that way, but 100% sure you are exactly where you need to be and you're doing it correctly.
We'll see.
Yeah, I sat at a panel yesterday, the GMSH, and they were talking this whole idea. They were like, "We need to do this about substance use and how to move forward with the meth pandemic that's happening in our community." And it's so funny. Some of the answers were like, "Just listen to what the people who are using speak to them." This idea that programming needs to continue more than like every 6 weeks. Like people want a place to go and be at. They want to feel like they're part of a community. Um, it's almost like you want to be like I'll use Pose as an example, the TV show. Like you want to belong to a house, and I feel like Sunshine House has become that and done that correctly. Like you're the auntie's house I want to go to because it's my safe space. It's my place to go and just be. And no matter where I am in my journey of addiction, or if I'm clean or sober, you're happy to take me there. And most people don't live like when you're on that journey. It's like you're not always clean and sober, and you're not always in the rock bottom. You're in that between stage, and you want to be able to go to a place that is safe. And I feel like it's what you say. Your programming fulfills that needs, which is like I wish the bigger cities would just listen to that. Like it's that simple.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there too, like, and I think even the language that you're using kind of highlights that. Like when we talk about, we spend so much time, so we know from our experiences as, like, as Indigenous people or people of color, that there's a necessity to dehumanize us, to control us. And so we spend, and even in the name of good, we still utilize those same tools and those same practices all the time. Like I see those things imposed on me all the time, and I see people trying to do those things even in a very progressive kind of woke kind of way. um, but so, and I think that, going back to that, we spend so much time dehumanizing people so that we can control them. So you use the word clean and sober. So it's like,
Right.
we from the start, most people's baseline about drug users is that drug users are not clean. They're not dirty. They're, I mean,
They
they're,
are
they're
dirty.
dirty.
Yeah.
They're subhuman. They require assistance. Like, so you think of all these things, like when something is not clean, you have to clean it.
Oh.
There's all that stuff around it, and so and we get caught up even in the most well-intentioned
Right.
practices. We get caught up um, in not viewing people as human beings. And so I think the key point is that you have to always view people as human beings. And I'm guilty of, like, I don't always treat all of my fellow human beings as human beings. Um, but that has to be the baseline, and then you have to also recognize that those people have their own teachings, and they have their own customs, and they have their own beliefs. And even if it's a subculture within a culture, those things are going to vary, and those things are going to require um, very nuanced and very kind of individual, or at least contextual, situational solutions to the challenges that they face. And then we also can't view, and then it also becomes very, very hard for us to parse through or separate what we view as a challenge, or what I view as a problem might not actually be a problem. It's not a problem, might not be a problem to this person or that group of people. And so, but we, that's often the case. And again, one of the things that we're really fortunate for at Sunshine House is that we're a small organization, and that, so that comes with all of its challenges, but also comes with all of its like opportunities. And so we don't have to, we don't have to kind of play the game in the same way larger organizations do.
Yes.
We don't have to follow the same types of rules or connect into the same types of systems that other organizations are kind of forced to do. And so that allows us to be able to operate in the way that we can. And so that's.
But it sounds like it's worked for your target audience, right? Like it's worked for the people you are serving, and at the end of the day, that's the important part. And you're right. I feel like you totally forget about this. There's a human behind it. In my addiction journey, people were like, the first person when I would tell people, they were like, "You're an addict?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "But you don't look like one." And I was like, "Oh fuck, tell me what one looks like." And they would
Yeah.
right, they would name that, and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Okay." And I remember like one of the most frustrating things for my loved ones were like, "What can we do to solve it?" I'm like, I'm telling you because I want you to be in the conversation. I don't have an answer for you to solve. There's nothing to solve. I'm just like I always use Brene Brown's quote where like I'm in the arena, I'm playing, I'm figuring it out. What I just need to, like when I know I'll come to you, but until then, I just want you to know that this is happening and just be normal with me. And it was always so frustrating because we're so taught to, again, you're right. If it's clean, let's make it. If it's dirty, let's make it clean. How do we fix this? How do we problem solve? And I'm a graphic designer, so problem solving is like number one on my list of things I've learned. And at that point, I just have to be like, okay, I don't want. And I remember the simplest things were like when friends were like, great, you're at my house, we're just gonna sit in silence, and that's all I needed. Or all my cousins are my favorite, would just like,
We never have favorite
I
cousins.
mean, I have two favorite cousins. I tell everybody. I don't care.
It's pretty obvious who my favorite cousins are too.
Yeah,
So
obviously, right? And we call it the cuddle bomb, where there was one. I was at her on her couch just crying, and I couldn't tap into why I was crying, and she just came and slept on my bum, and it's what her dog would do to her when she wasn't. And I was like that changed, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't know in the moment that's what I needed. But now moving forward, I'm like, oh, when I have this moment, I'm like, can I just come to your house and cuddle with you? Like, whoever you are, like, I'm having a moment, Levi, I'm having a moment coming over to cuddle, and I don't care. Like, that's all I want, and sometimes that's all people want is either a cuddle bum or someone to sit in silence with and not feel alone.
yeah,
And I feel like you guys have nailed it in terms of like ask the people what they want, and then just give them what they want, and it changes depending on where you are on your journey,
yeah.
right? And also demything some of these words like dirty, good, bad. Fucking don't tell me like every human at some point is good or bad. Like it's just what being a human is.
We're complex. We're complicated. We're messy. We're
Yeah,
yeah,
and we're nuanced. Like
yeah,
that's just who we are. Um, in reading about Sunshine Harm Reduction Harm Reduction Program, what I did love was that come as you are, right? Like
yeah.
wherever you are, come there, uh, and it feels like it's created an affirming and accessible space for people. It's such a small, like, safe space and just a space where I can be me. Like that seems to do that. The harm reduction program seems to do that, and so does the. I mean, it almost feels like it's almost like part of your mission statement. Like, just meet people where they are and come. We'll figure it out together.
Yeah, it is, and I think we have a lot of conversations internally amongst like staff and participants and board about what that actually means and what that looks like. And uh, I I appreciate the applause, and I appreciate all of the nice things you're saying, but we also don't always hit home runs, and we do fuck up, and we do we are a messy organization because we don't follow the same standards of practices that other people kind of have to follow or do. and we focus on a relational style of work, that often becomes really complicated and it's hard, and it gets messy. So it doesn't always work for everyone, um, but we try to be as responsive as possible when we can, given the space that we can. Um, and I'm really fortunate in the people that I work with, from all levels or from all like spheres of influence, whether that be staff or whether that be participants or whether that be the kind of governing body or donors or people who are just kind of invested in Sunshine House in some sort of way, all kind of have the same end goal. And it's just like, be safe and be cool. Like we want this place to be fun. We want this place to be safe, and we want this place to be like engaging. And so that's really, it's so hard. Like all the time I have to write, what's your mission statement, or what's your purpose and what's your value, and like we have those things, and you try to come up with ways, but when you're in constant change, you have to constantly evaluate how you're doing these things. And it's hard, but it's also, that's been a really fun part. And it's been a particularly in a time of such extreme crisis, um like the COVID-19 pandemic. um it's been really, really like the old part of me who wanted to be holed up in an office, in a dark office somewhere, not interacting with human beings
Right.
before they stumbled into this work. I would really, really like, I just love watching and seeing how people are navigating these situations. And um, I like, I like watching people's uh, approaches to community care. And I really, really like talking to people about like why they're doing the things that they do right now, even if it goes, if it's counterintuitive or if it's against kind of what public health measures are. And then like there's so many just interesting things that have happened in this little space. um, and relationships have been fraught with all sorts of different challenges, and we have to do things that we're not always comfortable with. But at the end of the day, folks still keep coming back, and they still keep being open with us, and they still keep being honest with us. And it's been really fascinating. And I'm sure other people have experienced this on a personal and professional level. um, but it's not a thing that I ever envisioned I'd be doing in my life. It's kind of occasionally manning the wheel of a ship that's weathering a storm. I don't know what the fucking metaphor is. That's what it is. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm in a, because my canoeing skills aren't the greatest. It feels like I'm in a canoe and I'm in a storm, and I'm kind of in between an island and the land, and I'm trying to make decisions on a daily basis on which way to paddle,
Right.
knowing that at any given moment I'm gonna fuck up and the whole thing is gonna flip over. That's what every day kind of feels like.
So I think three things come up in this whole conversation. One is like, I think every friend of mine who's had a baby is always like, "This is what you sound like." You're like, "What am I gonna do with this baby?" And our goal is just to keep it alive. I think your goal
Yeah.
is just to keep on the boat and keep moving forward, and you're doing it. However, how you get there, who cares? You're getting there. I feel like that. Like I'm always like, "Did you celebrate? Your kid's been alive for a week. Did you celebrate that? Great. It's been alive for 2 weeks. Like, I don't care what you did in between throughout the day. You kept this human alive. You kept sunshine. Like you've done your job, and you're just paddling. However, you're paddling. Some days you're paddling this way. Sometimes you're not. You're getting moving forward. Two, like most of the richest people in the world, the billionaires or the business moguls, always say their biggest learnings come from their failures. So this
Mhm.
idea that we have to succeed to learn, we never learn anything in succession. We always learn in our failures.
Mhm.
So when things don't work, and you pivot and you change and you move forward. I think that is what's important. It sounds like that's what you've been doing with Sunshine House. So I think on those days that you feel like you're not doing the best you can, actually you probably are doing way better than you think you are. And the fact that you're there, you've got a group of change makers who want to pivot and change and come up with a solution and want to move forward. It seems to be like, wow, what an amazing team to work with. What a like
Oh, they are incredible. They are like,
yeah.
it's honestly the reason why I can be at home today. It's like there's an event tomorrow that we're kind of responsible for it, but this is also so weird for me because I love being in that kind of event mode, and I'm just like, well, it became very clear to me from the beginning that they didn't need me, and I was like, well, this sucks. But also I'm here to support, and so it's like and that's also one of the things that you kind of have to learn in these roles is like you have to, and that's been also a huge challenge, but I was confronted with it through this storm is like we in a very quick way people's responsibilities had to change, and they became so heavy. People But man, like the staff that I work with and the communities that we work with are just so incredible. Like people like Monique and Feather and Isaac and Vita, and with Vince and Rowan and all these folks who were kind of with us through this whole mess of a year. It's been so, I learned so much. Like I just learned so much about um people's not their abilities. I never doubted that, but just I learned so much about how to manage those situations.
Right. I think, as the mommy bird has to do, you have to let your kids fly, and they will spread their wings. And it sounds like it's what's happening with your team. It's weird, I imagine, as somebody who's so involved in the day-to-day to sort of be like, great, now I have to step back and just watch. But
I like that. It's so involved. It's way better than me. I'm like, I'm a micromanager and I control things, and I'm just gonna always do that. I'm sorry.
well,
it's because I don't actually trust your abilities. I'm sorry about it.
yeah, but I don't know where to go from there.
I'm kidding. It's totally false. But that's what I have to tell myself is like when you feel like when I feel like I have to get into a situation, I just have to like, and I'm learning that, really trying to my best right now to do that. Just be like, why don't I just trust people to do that themselves? Because the result isn't going to be any different than if I do it. The approach might be different, and the details might be different, but the execution is actually probably going to be way different, and sometimes even better than when I would do it. And I have to really, so learning to trust people is so fucking hard though.
I hate it. This is why I only have 1 or 2 employees that I want to keep for the rest of my life, because I'm like, but it takes a trust, right? Like, you're so invested in it. It's like being like, here, babysit my baby. Yeah. It takes working, and I think it evolves and changes as you grow. And it sounds like you guys are in a growth process, and it's amazingly exciting. One of my questions was, what is the heart and soul of Sunshine House? And I feel like you answered that. It's the people. It's the people you work with and what they do. I'm going to add them onto my interview list, and I'm going to figure out how to talk to these guys. I feel like I'd love to hear their point of view of what they're doing.
Oh, they're also great. They're also
stalking them, so I know.
Oh, I will just give you their work emails.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
done. Let's put this together, and can you be like, hey, through Sunshine House, can you? But I feel like I'm super excited about the Winnipeg community, so it's great to sort of meet these people and see how to be a part of it, and also how to share it with people. I feel like Winnipeg is such a, like, they're the armpit of Canada, and I'm like, there actually aren't. Like, people are so, I mean, this is a Toronto point of view of this things. Like, it's so, like, we're assholes. So
Toronto is just fancy Cleveland, so they need to settle the fuck down. Like,
they're also not that
they're
fancy.
actually not that great.
No, we could expose in a whole different way about how Toronto. Levi, that could be maybe we'll do like a shade project later in life, and we'll talk how they are.
We're gonna talk about how much I disliked the 6 months that I lived in Toronto, and I was never moved back there. And anytime someone tells me they're moving to Toronto, I'm like, God, I hope your skin is super thick and that you don't actually value any kind of meaningful friendships, because it's gonna take so long to form those with people who are from Toronto.
Yeah, it's a cliquey nation, and I grew up in Toronto, so like I know what clique nation looks like. To be able to travel away and come back and be like, oh my God, like other people in the world are not like this. People get out of Toronto, go see the world. Can we do it in hair? Can we do it in dragon wigs though? I feel like shading Toronto would be great in like I want to have an arched eyebrow that starts here. But I want to be able to say some really cunty things that are rooted in the truth.
Yeah, and then one just like solid one.
Yeah. Only because But I'm never going back. Let's just be honest about it. Sorry, mom and dad. This is the new home. Levi, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to. See, we've been talking about Sunshine House. I can tell that you're so passionate about it, and you're like Margaret made the best choice. The universe made the best choice to get you there, and I know from people I've talked to, people who are on your board, people who have just met, the impact the Sunshine House is making on the queer community in Winnipeg, on the community in Winnipeg in general, is phenomenal. I can't wait to this year specifically. I've made a point to like attend a drag bingo, to check out like that, to see anything and everything that has to do with Sunshine House and see where it's going. I'm excited to jump in and see
I can't wait
what
for it.
happens. Yeah, I'm so pumped. Uh, let's close this thing. Thank you to everybody else for taking time out of their busy schedules, for connecting with Levi and I as we talk more about Winnipeg and Sunshine House. There'll be a link somewhere. Follow it. See all the cool things they're doing. See how cool the Prairie Queens are. Because Toronto bitches, you ain't all that. Bye.
I didn't say that.